This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Chad on edge. The Military Transitional Council promises elections in 18 months, but rebels say their march on the capital is still on. The African Union delegation concludes a working visit to Libya amid efforts to mend ties between Egypt and Libya. And we examine the main achievements of the Boao Forum, which has wrapped up on the Chinese island of Hainan. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. We'll bring you the details on those stories in just a moment, but first, here's Ramanyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Kenya and Uganda have reached a deal to end persistent cross-border trade rows. We'll have the details. And inflation in South Africa has gone up to over 3%. We'll have the data and the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we begin in Chad, where the Transitional Military Council has promised to return power to a civilian government and hold free elections in 18 months. But opposition politicians in the country have rejected the military transitional plan, and so has the Front for Change and Concord, a rebel group in the north, which says it will still march on the capital N'Djamena. CGTN's Nokutula Shabalala has more.
General Mahamat Kaka is now the interim head of state in Chad. He took office on Tuesday following the death of his father, President Idriss Deby. The military says Deby died from wounds suffered while leading soldiers on the front line against rebels advancing from the north towards the capital N'Djamena.
We have to say that the death of this great statesman is an enormous loss for Chad and Africa. He'll be remembered for his multiple actions around the world for peace, security and stability.
The Transitional Military Council, the Defense and Security Forces say they are not seeking to seize power.
In the Transitional Charter, the Transitional Military Council will work to consolidate the democracy, ensure peace and stability, guarantee the security and the protection of our national territory. We would like to reassure people that the members of the Transitional Military Council will return power back to a civilian government through free and democratic elections within 18 months.
In a statement, the Front for Change and Concord in Chad rebel group has rejected the transition plan and vowed to continue its offensive towards the capital. Meanwhile, Chadians living in the capital are concerned about what many feel is an uncertain future.
May he rest in peace. We've known only him as a country's leader. He's worked hard for the prosperity and the security of the people. No one complained about their social status during his reign. Today is a difficult day for us. May he rest in peace.
What we are waiting for is, how do you call it? The moment of transition. We don't want another military representative in power during this transition because there will be problems again. A civilian is needed.
The state funeral for President Idriss Deby will take place on Friday, according to military officials. It will be held in the capital N'Djamena. The body will then be buried in Deby's native region in the Far East. Nokutula Shabalala, CGTN.
The United Nations and the United States have sent their condolences to the Chadian government and the people following the death of President Idriss Deby. Both are concerned about the impact that Deby's death will have on Chad's constitutional order and the humanitarian crisis in the Lake Chad Basin.
Secretary General was deeply saddened to hear about the passing of President Idriss Deby of Chad. He expresses his deepest condolences to the president, as well to the president's family, as well as to the people and the government of Chad. The situation in the country is characterized by growing humanitarian needs linked to the conflict in the Lake Chad Basin, as well as the effects of climate change. We, along with our partners, are continuing our operations in the country to assist impacted communities. The humanitarian response plan for Chad is seeking $617 million this year. To date, it's only 6% funded.
What we want to see is a transition that is consistent with Chad's constitution. Obviously, Chad's institutions are enshrined in its constitution. We want to see the elements of that constitution protected going forward. We are committed, even though we remain on order departure, to a strong diplomatic partnership with Chad. That will not change. The Chargé remains in Chad, and the embassy there continues to operate.
Joining me from Dakar, Senegal, is Dr. Paul Simon Handy. He's the Senior Regional Advisor at ISS Africa. Dr. Handy, thank you for joining us on Africa Live. Now, events in Chad have rapidly changed the political and governance landscape. What are the key priority areas during the country's transition?
Really depends from where we sit. According to the transition government, key priorities revolve around stability and also fighting the rebellion that has come pretty close to N'Djamena to seize power. But from the perspective of opposition parties and probably of the civil society, priorities revolve around maybe reorganizing the presidential elections that took place and was considered not free and fair, and also possibly revising certain laws that were enacted and that actually were to ensure that political participation is broader. So, but these priorities, whether from the opposition parties and from the interim movement, interim government, revolve around first stability to make sure that there's no power vacuum in the country, and then the rest will follow.
So in making sure that there is no power vacuum, the Transitional Military Council has promised to return power to a civilian government in around 18 months. But insurgents in the country's north are adamant in their quest to march on the capital, N'Djamena. How serious should their threat be taken?
I think the threat should be taken quite seriously. We don't know what is the morale of the state army now. Certainly the rebel group will be boosted and motivated by the fact that the chief commander of the national army has died, the president, and they will certainly increase pressure in N'Djamena. So I think these threats should be taken seriously. Also, because internally, the Transitional Military Council is contested. It is considered by civil society and opposition movement as a coup, actually. And what is happening actually has all the trappings of a palace coup.
So Chad's interim leader is now the son of the late President Idriss Deby. What's your assessment of this choice?
Dynastic succession. Clearly, the choice was made. The choice to choose him was certainly a choice of continuity of Deby's rule with his son. It was probably the most common, the lowest common denominator to maintain a system, Deby system, which basically also reflects Deby's family and President Deby's clan. So his son is a general. He's quite young. He's made an impressive military career, which probably wouldn't have been possible if his father was not the head of state. But clearly, it's a dynastic succession, and we can expect some opposition to it, internally as well as externally.
So you did mention earlier that for now, security is paramount. So what role should the international community play to safeguard Chad's stability and territorial integrity?
I think several things can be done. Chad has generally been the one country coming to support other countries in under stress. It has been the case in the Sahel, and it has been the case also in the Lake Chad Basin. And now Chad needs help, which is quite an irony. I think many things can be done. First of all, making sure that the interim arrangements respect the constitution, which already did not start from the on the right foot, but the international community can actually support Chad, including the military transitional government, in making sure that the transition respect as much as possible Chad's constitution. I think it's certainly not a good start to suspend the constitution. The international community can also do a lot in accompanying Chad's transition in different ways. We've seen, for example, what has happened recently in the case of Mali, where there was also a coup, an unconstitutional change of government. And we've seen how the ECOWAS and the African Union were standing by the government of Mali to making sure that even the transition respects several conditions, notably the time frame, not too long, but also inclusivity. Chad's interim government still has to do it, and then only then will financial flows, external financial flows will be made available.
Dr. Paul Simon Handy joining us there from Dakar in Senegal. Thank you. An African Union delegation led by Commission Chair Moussa Faki Mahamat has concluded a working visit to Libya and pledged to support a national reconciliation conference there. The African Union has also said it will help the country prepare for the December 2021 elections. Here is CGTN's Girum Chala with more on that.
According to this latest announcement, the African Union Commission will play an active role in the upcoming Inter-Libyan National Reconciliation Conference. This has been disclosed after the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, alongside the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Bankole Adoyo, and Social Affairs Commissioner Amira El Fadil, finished a two-day working visit to Libya on Tuesday. According to a statement from the African Union, during the visit, the chairperson and his delegation held extensive discussion with Mohamed El Menfi, chairman of the Presidency Council of Libya, and Abdul Hamid Dbeibah, Prime Minister of the Government of the National Unity. The statement further adds that as a result of the two meetings, the leaders agreed on the role of the African Union in supporting Libya to organize and conduct an Inter-Libyan National Reconciliation Conference. On the other hand, the African Union is expected to provide crucial support to all Libyan parties ahead of elections scheduled to be held in December 2021. All sides involved in the Libyan peace process, including the AU, believe the upcoming elections can help in the restoration of peace, stability, democracy and development in the country. Grumtara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Meanwhile, Egypt and Libya have signed 11 cooperation agreements in numerous fields. Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and Libyan Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibah took part in the signing ceremony in Tripoli. This is the first time that an Egyptian Prime Minister has visited Libya since the conflict broke out in 2011. Adil Mahroui reports.
Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli led the biggest Egyptian official delegation to Libya on record. 11 ministers, as well as Egyptian heads of investment institutions and governmental bodies, visited Tripoli on Tuesday. The step reflects a new chapter in the ties between both nations as they seek to expand their cooperation in all fields.
We are bound to Egypt by deep relations, strong history, affinity, and common benefits. We value Egypt's dear role to enrich the Libyan dialogue and finding solutions by hosting economic and security talks between Libyans. Under the current circumstances in the region, we need to create strategic partnerships in all fields.
The heads of cabinets signed 11 memorandums of understanding, focusing mainly on cooperation in infrastructure projects. They also announced the resumption of flights between the two countries this week. Cairo has also finally announced that it will reopen its embassy in Tripoli by mid-May.
The most prominent agreement is the return of Egyptian labor to Libya. The Egyptian labor file in Libya was one of the most painful consequences of the conflict there for Egypt. This is a great opportunity for Egypt's labor. An estimated 2 million Egyptians used to work there. The Libyan market is very important to Egypt's labor force.
In a move to strengthen their border security cooperation, the two countries have agreed to merge their counter-terrorism efforts. They will establish a framework of monitoring and sharing information about terror groups' finances and activities. A committee will be established to work on a joint terror list of individuals and organizations. Egypt's Prime Minister's visit to Tripoli shows Cairo's confidence in the current transitional unity government. It also reflects Egypt's belief that Libya has crossed the civil war phase and is now heading towards stability and reconstruction. Adel Mahwi, CGTN, Cairo.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. We examine the main achievements of the Boao Forum, which has wrapped up on the Chinese island of Hainan. And a group of women weathers the storm brought by the pandemic to keep hunger at bay and earn a living.
No one again, he can hold in guns. Machine guns from police forces towards the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
Thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
The Boao Forum has ramped up on the Chinese island of Hainan. It's been one of the world's biggest events held in person this year, and it comes with many countries looking to recover from the pandemic. Our reporter Zhou Xiaqin has the highlights.
The focus has been Asia, but global issues and human development have also been key to the agenda. With at least 60 panel discussions on topics ranging from the post-pandemic economic recovery, digitalization and sustainable development, participants at the forum were able to reach agreement on some of the world's biggest challenges.
We believe that the global economy at this current stage is jumping from a severe recession to a recovery amid uncertainties and wide gaps between countries. It is more important than ever before to strengthen global governance and international cooperation. The Belt and Road Initiative has played a positive role in regional connectivity and the economic recovery.
I think the importance of the forum, in addition to the anniversary, it's the classical end light at the end of the tunnel. So it's exactly the, let's say, the value chain of the thinking process. It's the best of all worlds.
One of the global challenges political, business, and academic leaders at the forum have been addressing is the increasingly tense international environment.
And geopolitics, not just between US and China, have become much more difficult. We see this also between the US and Europe, between India and China, but we also see this between many other countries.
It's also been a time for Asian countries to share ideas related to their political identities and ideals.
However strong it may grow, China will never seek hegemony, expansion, or a sphere of influence, nor will China ever engage in an arms race. China will take an active part in multilateral cooperation on trade and investment.
If Asian countries can further innovation cooperation, we will play a bigger role in leading in the future and responding to crisis. We hope this year's Boao annual conference will contribute experience and wisdom to the recovery and further development of human society.
China and Asia have never been more determined to advance and integrate with the rest of the world. They've been rising to the challenge and striving for globalization and their vision of how human civilization should move forward. Zhou Jiaxing, CGTN, Boao, Hainan Province.
Well, part of the forum was devoted to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has faced controversy over its structure and projects. Chinese officials addressed those concerns, as our Yang Chengxi reports.
Since Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, China has traded over $9 trillion worth of goods with economies along this region. But as collaborations increased, so did controversies over this initiative.
The conspiracy theories out there mainly surround the idea that projects coming from China are top-down and government-driven.
The former governor of China's central bank says many of these projects are market-driven. A lot of the countries along the Belt and Road have embraced the notion that business is business.
In the United Arab Emirates, there are no barriers to investment against any technologies, companies, funds, and talents from China across all sectors.
The Abu Dhabi Global Market, an international financial center, is exploring ways to support more small and medium companies as well as startups who find themselves starving for capital due to COVID-19. As traditional banks fall short of fulfilling these needs, the center is collaborating with its Chinese partners to address the issue.
We established the financing service platform in the China-UAE Industrial Capacity Cooperation Demonstration Zone in 2018. We provide financial support to Chinese firms, big and small, who come to the UAE or other Middle East or North African markets. This includes loans, equity investments, trade financing, supply chain financing, and so on.
To make the funding more sustainable and accessible, Fu said financing firms should explore digital upgrades such as e-payments, blockchain, and e-authentication, areas that many Chinese and UAE fintech firms have the knowledge to share. Yang Chengxi, CGTN, Boao, Hainan Province.
Health experts in Ghana are warning that misinformation about COVID-19 vaccines has made some people reluctant to get vaccinated. They want the government to raise awareness about the vaccines so that more people agree to get inoculated. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Adehamond falls within the last group of people to be vaccinated against COVID-19 in Ghana, per the country's rollout plan, which is by the end of the year. But she's uncertain about taking the shot.
I heard some people died in the UK after taking the vaccine. Here in Ghana, some people complained of side effects after getting the shot. I don't know what will happen to me when I take the jab, so I'm afraid of the COVID-19 vaccination.
More than 800,000 people in Ghana have so far received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The initial phase targeted healthcare workers, journalists, and vulnerable groups when it began in March. Health experts say misinformation about the potential side effects of COVID-19 vaccines and fake news could be preventing people from getting vaccinated.
The people who are good at explaining and sending messages are the bad news. It's the one that travels very fast because you don't need too much to say that the vaccine is not good. You need to spend more time before you explain to the person that the vaccine is good.
Rabiu Alassan is part of a WHO Africa network of fact-checkers trying to fight misinformation about COVID-19 vaccines and the pandemic.
When we had reports that some European countries had suspended the deployment of the vaccines because of blood clots, I think one important step that we took as the WHO Africa Infodemic Alliance was the swift nature the Secretariat sent us the verified information with regards to what had come from the European Medical Agency. So quickly we put out that information with regards the credible information that had come up.
Ghana says it expects to receive more doses of AstraZeneca vaccines next month.
it will use it to roll out the second shot to people that have already received the first dose.
Ghana aims to vaccinate 20 million people by the end of the year. Experts say people like Ade Hammond need to be convinced to take the shot so the country can achieve herd immunity. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
While many popular words about and related to the COVID-19 pandemic do not exist in most of the ethnic languages on the African continent, now a group of volunteers in South Africa have gone online and created them. The initiative is led by Wiki Africa, a project to increase Wikipedia content in African languages. It is currently targeting South Africa's 11 official languages. CGTN's Jolisan Jamela has more.
In a time of government-enforced lockdowns to stop the spread of COVID-19, digital technology has enabled the continuation of communication, work and other aspects of life. But here on the African continent, millions of people are still unable to connect to the internet. And according to research done by a global system for mobile communications, a mobile operators trade body, even Africans who can get on the web often struggle to find content they can relate to and content that is curated in their own language. In South Africa, a group of volunteers want to change that scenario. They've gone online to create COVID-19 related terminology in the main South African languages. It's an initiative led by Wiki Africa, a project to increase Wikipedia content in African languages.
This is part of a larger body of work, a larger program called Wiki Africa Education. Wiki Africa Education kind of stems from an unbelievably simple point, which was that on Wikipedia today, there's more information about the city of Paris, about France, than about all 55 countries in Africa combined. When you dive deeper and you go into African languages, the problem just exacerbates, it gets worse.
For now, in South Africa, the translations are done for two of the main languages, isiXhosa and isiZulu.
We went with languages that had a large group of speakers in the regions that we were looking at. And that's how we came up with our choice of languages there.
Perry Mason Williams, a Johannesburg-based accountant and classically trained vocalist, is one of the volunteers.
I decided to volunteer because I felt that it's so important, that we not only use, our indigenous languages, but that we also preserve, our languages, our indigenous mother tongues. Language is so important. It's such a powerful tool, and this reminds me of the famous quote by Utata Nelson Mandela, when he says, if you speak to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his heart.
The drive by Wiki Africa was launched by the Moleskine Foundation in 2006. It has since contributed more than 40,000 written entries, images, and video files for the wildly popular online encyclopedia. Yolisan Jamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, women in rural parts of Western Kenya are showing their resilience during the coronavirus pandemic by playing their part in preventing hunger in their community, while also earning a living in the process. CGTN's Daniel Arap-Moy reports.
This is Siatok Women's Group in Kenya's western city of Kisumu. The women here have been supporting each other through farming as they seek to improve their economic well-being during this coronavirus pandemic.
We wanted to eradicate poverty within the community. We are helping widows who are vulnerable and children also. We pay for the children, vulnerable children's school fees, and we are also doing farming as a business. Most of us also keep poultry.
The COVID-19 pandemic has hit women across the country hard. It has also led to job losses and increased unemployment. But not for these women. They have been fairly busy thanks to their ventures.
From the farming that we have been doing, we have been selling our bananas so that at least we generate an income to support our families at home.
While many are facing unprecedented challenges, women are especially bearing the brunt of economic and social fallout of COVID-19. Despite the challenges thrown their way by the COVID-19 pandemic, these women in Western Kenya are happy that their hard work is reaping rewards.
As a group, we have been doing well. Whenever we plant things like amaranth, when we sell them, we divide some money we give to the widows.
Projections from the International Labour Organization suggest the equivalent of 140 million full-time jobs could be lost due to COVID-19, and women's employment is 19% more at risk than men during this pandemic. But for members of the CGTN Women's Group, these tough times have also seen them make great strides in becoming self-sufficient. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Kisumu, Kenya.
And here's a quick recap of our top headlines this hour. In Chad, the Transitional Military Council has promised to return power to a civilian government and hold free elections in 18 months. But opposition politicians in the country have rejected the military transitional plan, and so has the Front for Change and Concord rebel group in the north, which says it will still march on the capital in N'Djamena. An African Union delegation led by Commission Chair Musa Faki Mahamat has concluded a working visit to Libya and pledged to support a national reconciliation conference there. And Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madboullali has also visited Libya, marking the first such visit there by an Egyptian premier since the conflict broke out in 2011. And the Boao Forum has wrapped up on the Chinese island of Hainan. It's been one of the world's biggest events held in person this year, and it comes with many countries looking to recover from the coronavirus pandemic. And that's a look at your headlines. Well, let's now go to Rama Nyang for a look at the day's business news. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. Kenya and Uganda have reached a deal to end persistent trade rows. And headline inflation in South Africa has gone back up to 3.2%.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start in East Africa, where authorities in Kenya and Uganda have reached an agreement to resolve persistent trade rows between the East African neighbors following a 7-day visit by officials from Nairobi to Kampala. They were led by the Cabinet Secretary for Trade and Industry, Betty Maina. The Kenyan officials were in Uganda from the 11th of April to discuss non-tariff barriers affecting trade between the two countries and also to verify the status of the Ugandan sugar industry to ensure that the exports of the products into Kenya are entirely produced in Uganda. Under the new framework of trade cooperation, Kenya will import up to 90,000 metric tons of Ugandan sugar every year. And from the 1st of July, when the new financial year begins, the country will also abolish a 35% excise duty on liquid petroleum gas cylinders manufactured in Uganda. For the South, Statistics South Africa has published its latest inflation data for the month of March. Inflation once again has gone back up into the preferred range of the South African Central Bank, anywhere between 3 to 6%. Now, the data does show that the annual headline inflation rose slightly to 3.2% in March from 2.9% in February. The food and non-alcoholic beverages index is a main driver of inflation in the month of March. It moved by 5.7% year on year. It contributed 1 percentage point to the total CPI annual rate of 3.2%. Housing and utilities up 2.2% year on year. Transport also went up by 3.8% year on year, contributing roughly half percentage point. Miscellaneous goods and services went up by 4% on an annual basis. They contributed roughly 0.7 of a percentage point. Still in South Africa, the authorities there have extended by another 3 months the deadline for a loan scheme, which is central to efforts to counter the negative economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the bank loan scheme for businesses worth up to 200 billion rand, partially guaranteed by the government back in April. Now, the availability of loans in the scheme has been extended all the way to the 11th of July from an earlier deadline of the middle of April. Here's Angela Coppola with the details.
Government and National Treasury officials are disappointed by the uptake of the funds. The scheme distributed and approved only 14,000 loans, valued at 18 billion rand. Business groupings weren't surprised.
This is in keeping with our anecdotal evidence from our members, that our members and SMEs in general were not hugely enthusiastic about taking on more debt. Let's not forget, when the scheme was introduced, the country was going through a recession, and there had been multiple credit rating downgrades, which made the cost of borrowing quite high.
As a relief scheme, it's been a complete ride royal disaster, purely because of the lack of clear communication between National Treasury, the SARB, which is the South African Reserve Bank, as well as the commercial banks themselves. What the banks have tended to do is to look more almost using the same usual credit criteria. There have been cases where our members have actually even been asked for personal suretyships. Yet we understand this to be a scheme that is already guaranteed by the government.
The loan extension announcement earlier in April isn't expected to increase the number of applicants.
It's to allow the processing of the current loan applications to go through, and those who have been approved to access the funding that they've applied for.
Associations have their own thoughts about more viable options that government should have considered, like reducing corporate income tax rates.
Corporate income tax in South Africa is around 28%, right? Now I'm saying you can only charge the 28% from people who are actually working, who are actually generating that level of profit to be able to pay you.
Another suggestion put forward is grant funding, a once-off payment if companies are compliant.
You apply for it. If you're registered with the CIPC, you're tax paying, you are contributing to the UIF, especially those businesses which are the medium-sized enterprises, which have got ability to grow, ability to export, ability to innovate, and ability to employ more people.
Well, the scheme was a good idea initially. The issue was around the interest payments and the fact that entrepreneurs don't want to incur more debt in a very slow economic growth environment. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
One last story for you in this segment. Climate change presents a rather bleak future as far as agriculture is concerned, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Low rainfall, pests, diseases, they've all combined to threaten crop yields. But there's one insurance firm that's trying to assist farmers to secure their investment in the face of increasing losses. Here's CGTN's Wanja Mungai with that story.
38-year-old Waki Munyalo is counting her blessings. Though her harvest was not bountiful this season, she's grateful for having taken precautions. She's among some of the farmers who are cushioning themselves against climate change through insurance.
Insurance is really good. It helps and motivates us, especially when they ask us to grow maize, millet or green grams. That's our produce, not yours. So we do our best to grow those crops and meet our target.
She got $110 from Pula, an insurance firm that helps farmers insure their yields against extreme weather. Munyalo is from lower eastern Kenya, an area that is semi-arid. Like many farmers in sub-Saharan Africa, they rely on rain-fed agriculture. But recently, there has been little rain, leading to a drop in crop production.
We are trying to help them by distributing insurance products that will enable them to fight advanced climatic changes, things to do with rainfall, whether it's excess rainfall which causes the flooding and hailstorms, whether it's less rainfall which causes drought and causes plant loss, anything that is a natural calamity that's likely to affect the farmer.
Climate change has been ranked as one of the greatest catastrophes of the 21st century. That is according to the United Nations. 60% of the African population is employed in the agricultural sector, which contributes 30% to the GDP. Manifestations of climate change like erratic rainfall, drought, Floods, pests and diseases are some of the stumbling blocks to increased agricultural production. Pula is using new technology to enhance its operations. Thanks to the use of mobile phones, the farm now has a rich database of registered farmers and is able to map land as well as assess the claims. The insurance firm is present in 11 African countries, including Nigeria, Kenya, Zambia and Ethiopia. In Kenya, Pula has a network of 600,000 farmers.
The key for us is to one, as I said, achieve diversification, demonstrate that this is actually something we can do at a global scale, to enable us to reach our goal of reaching at least 30 million farmers in the next 2 to 3 years, spread across the 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Latin America.
Brazil and India top the list of the company's next frontiers. Wanjamungai, CGTN.
All right, then we'll leave it there for the time being. I'll be back at the top of the hour, though. In global business, we'll be heading over to Kinshasa. Government delegates and business owners have been meeting over there to chart ways of fast-tracking the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area. What's been done so far and what else needs to be done? We'll have the details at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. Well, we still have more news for you here on Current Affairs. Here's what's ahead. The Table Mountain fire is now contained, but the destruction left behind leaves a stark reminder of the power of the blaze.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Tanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
To South Africa now, where a huge fire that destroyed structures and monuments in Cape Town is now mostly under control. The blaze engulfed large parts of the Table Mountain and also sections of the University of Cape Town. Some firefighting crews are still on the ground at known fire hotspots. CGTN's Travers Andrews has the latest updates.
The battle to contain one of Cape Town's worst fires in recent years is almost over, and now the city is counting its losses. Helicopters have conducted aerial water bombing in high sections of the mountain to put out fires at hotspots. Some firefighting crews are still on the scene, doing the same in lower parts of the mountain.
We currently have minimal crews on the mountain slopes, mostly seasonal firefighters that's doing the mop-up operation. Because after such a fire over such a vast area, the aftermath and the overall takes quite some time. So I predict here by Friday, Saturday, we won't have anyone there with mopping up operations. But mostly there will be a couple of flare-ups, but that will be also in the burnt area.
Local authorities say 11 structures have been destroyed and vast parts of Table Mountain have been burnt. The University of Cape Town's African Studies Program library also went up in flames, destroying priceless print and audiovisual material.
It impacted on a lot of different things. It was just not only the fire with the vegetation and the structures that was damaged in the fire. The iconic structure, the Mostard's Mill, that was now damaged, and most probably the damages at the UCT, the Jagger Library, where they needed a structural engineer to see, obviously with the structural integrity of the building, does it need to be rebuilt.
Students who were evacuated from the university's dormitory are set to return in the next 24 hours, once firefighters give them the all clear. Many Cape Town residents volunteering at the fire station are also set to stand down. While the flurry of activity at this central fire station has all but died down, donations of food and drink continue to pour in for firefighters who remain in the mountains tending to the hotspots. and those hotspots are being monitored very carefully by authorities. We're also checking on the 4 firefighters who were injured while trying to put out the blaze. Dubs Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Meanwhile, volunteers have been pouring in to help those affected and to ensure firefighters are kept fed and hydrated. CGTN's Julie Shire volunteered at one of the biggest donations drop-off spots and now reports.
This was no ordinary seasonal vegetation fire. It engulfed priceless antiquities of African history and intellect, leaving a trail of devastation as it advanced towards the city center. But it's during dark times when hope shines through.
Being the biggest African NGO, one of the biggest African NGO in the world, numbers doesn't matter to us. We then activated our teams immediately. We activated a 5-day activation plan where the students will be accommodated in the hotels for 5 days. We are catering for the firefighters as well. As we know, they are the real heroes. They are working 24/7. And the spirit of Ubuntu of South Africans has been overflowing. We found people coming in here in their hundreds. In fact, for the first day, we had more people here than the victims out we're supporting out there.
In my lifetime, I've seen fires in Cape Town, but this, at the rate this fire, it was just a perfect storm. It was dry, it was hot, and it just spread very quickly. So we're doing our best as the givers to remedy or to help and assist in the situation. The people of Cape Town have been fantastic. The response we've gotten has just been unbelievable, and we'd really like to thank everybody that's contributed.
As you can see behind us, this is just a lot of volunteers that have come. Some of them, I think majority are from UCT, but there's obviously been other people who've come in to help. It's so important because so many students have been displaced. Some have lost all of their belongings and they haven't eaten. All they left with was the clothes on their back.
People have been eager to help, and the meals that we're dishing up are going to help feed 4,000 students and hundreds of firefighters.
Despite Table Mountain's blaze being largely contained, Head of Fire Operations Arlene Weir says they're still not out of the woods.
Up to now, we've managed to do all our firefighting, and we still have people on the lines of managing the hotspots, flare-ups, and we will do that continuously during the night. In total, I think we were probably up to about 45 plus minus 45 to 50 vehicles on scene for this fire, and the total amount of staff could have been close to 300 at the start of it. We have numerous mountain fires over the years, and this one has been particularly bad because it wasn't just a vegetation fire, and what hampered a lot of it was the weather conditions.
For over 3 days, exhausted firefighters battled flames under extreme wind conditions. Cape Townians did all they could to thank them.
So the firefighters work 24-hour shifts, and they spend the entire 24-hour shift on the mountain working, and hence the gratitude towards our public and communities for assisting us, keeping them fed and hydrated so that they can perform this job.
The cause of the fire is still under investigation, with one suspect allegedly arrested for arson. Julie Shire, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. European Super League architect Andrea Agnelli says competition can no longer go ahead after 7 of the 12 founder clubs quit. We kick off your sport with a